She stood in the doorway like she was performing a scene she'd rehearsed too many times in front of a bathroom mirror. Arms crossed, jaw tight, voice firm, but not shaking, not cracked, just practiced. "I don't need a man to fix me, or fund me. I'm done." No tears. No asking if I had anything to say. Just that line, like it was plucked from an empowerment podcast or stitched across a throw pillow in a single-girl apartment she didn't yet have. Then the door slammed behind her, hard enough for the echo to linger. Somewhere in the hallway, I thought I heard her unlock her phone. Probably cueing the carousel. Something about strong women, self-worth, and rising like a phoenix. Something that made her look like the one walking away. I didn't chase her. Didn't shout after her or call her name. I just sat back down on the couch and opened a beer with the side of the coffee table. The click of the cap against wood sounded louder than it should have. Louder than her voice, even. The living room still smelled like her. Lavender and citrus and whatever overpriced face cream she used. The couch cushion she always curled up in was dented. One of her hair ties sat on the coffee table, stretched and forgotten. It felt less like a breakup and more like someone had pressed pause on a scene they planned to resume later. I didn't touch any of it. Just stared at the door she closed so dramatically, and for a long time, I didn't feel anger or relief. Just a kind of weighted silence. Like something in me hadn't caught up to what just happened. She was gone. Or at least, she said she was. But even as I sat there, letting the cold bottle press against the side of my neck, something itched in the back of my mind. It wasn't how she said it, it was when. She didn't leave in the heat of an argument. There hadn't been one. No fight, no betrayal I could name, no shouting. Just distance, quiet changes. Her phone flipped down more often. More. Girls' nights. That didn't match the calendar. But no, she hadn't stormed out after a betrayal. She'd waited until the apartment was clean, laundry folded, fridge stocked. She picked a Friday night, after posting a selfie with the caption, "Peace begins with goodbye." She wanted to be seen leaving. It was a performance, a breakup for an audience, and yet, she left her favorite jacket hanging on the hook by the door. I took a sip of the beer, thought about texting her, then didn't. Let her silence stretch. Let the performance start. And waited to see if it would hold. By Sunday morning, her strong woman post had over 300 likes. Comments flowed in. "So proud of you, inspiration, real queen behavior." People who hadn't spoken to her in years were suddenly cheering on her exit like it was a career move. She hadn't even changed her address. That's when I knew. This wasn't a separation, it was a set piece. A breakup curated for external validation. She wanted to be seen walking out, not actually walk away. Her desk drawer was still full. Jewelry in its usual tangled heap. Half her skincare lineup still lined the bathroom shelf, untouched. I gave it 3 days before I checked the joint accounts. No withdrawal. No transfers. She hadn't rented a place, hadn't moved funds. Still had her location turned off, though. Something new since the week before she left. She had no plan. Only an image. I didn't say a word. Not to her, not to anyone. But I started watching. Wednesday, a delivery came to the apartment, addressed to her. I left it on the counter. Friday, another one. Saturday morning, she texted, "Hey, some packages might be coming there still. Just leave them inside?" "No. How are you?" No mention of where she was staying. Just instructions. I answered with one word. "Okay." I didn't ask why her supposed new place couldn't receive mail. I didn't point out that she still hadn't changed her address with the bank. I just let the quiet do its work. Silence had a way of showing people what they didn't expect to hear. A week later, I ran into Rachel, one of her closer friends, at a downtown coffee spot. Rachel looked uncomfortable, hesitated too long before asking, "You holding up okay?" I told her I was fine. Calm, focused, no drama. Her relief was visible. Then came the slip. She thought, I think she expected you'd try to stop her. Or call her bluff. I don't know. She said you'd probably beg. I kept my expression steady. Just nodded once. That confirmed it. The whole thing, the speech, the exit, the curated digital heartbreak, wasn't an act of self-liberation. It was a gamble. A bluff. She was banking on me crumbling publicly, crawling back, letting her stage a reluctant reconciliation, maybe even take credit for forgiving me. But I hadn't moved a muscle. The silence wasn't emotional paralysis. It was strategy. She left to get a reaction, and I gave her nothing. By week 2, the illusion was cracking. She was still posting daily, filtered snapshots, caption quotes, curated solitude. She had brunch one day with a new crowd and posted a blurry photo of mimosas, writing, "Redefining home. Redefining me." But the tags? No geolocation. No group shots. Just her face, angled and composed, like she was trying to prove something to someone, maybe even to herself. Meanwhile, the evidence kept building back here. Netflix still logged new activity under our profile. Not a new account, not a guest login. Just the one we'd shared. The shows were the same too. Comfort stuff. The kind she used to binge with a blanket wrapped around her legs and a bowl of popcorn in her lap. Watching them alone now, somewhere that clearly didn't feel like home. She hadn't moved. Not really. The mailbox still filled with her catalogs and appointment reminders. A parcel came from her hairstylist, product samples, the same brand she'd argued was non-negotiable in our budget. And then, at 10:42 a.m. on a Thursday, came the message. "Hey, can you help me move my stuff this weekend?" My ride bailed. No preamble. No apology. Just a casual ask like we were still friends or roommates. Like she hadn't marched out of this place like a protester on principle, announcing her liberation from the man she'd supposedly outgrown. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't expect it, but because of what it meant. She was still tethered here, not emotionally, but logistically. She hadn't secured her next chapter, just staged a dramatic exit from this one. Now the curtain had fallen, and reality was demanding rent money. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took a walk around the apartment. Opened the closet where her coats still hung in plastic from the dry cleaner. Walked past the bathroom where her straightener and makeup bag still sat in the drawer. None of it packed. She hadn't moved out. She just moved attention. I replied 2 hours later. "I'll be here Saturday." "What time?" Not because I planned to help. Because I needed to see if she'd show up alone. Because I needed to know if this strong woman narrative could withstand the weight of her own logistics. I needed to see who she brought with her. Because people only ask for help moving when they assume someone's still holding the box for them. And I was about to let it hit the ground. Saturday came without fanfare. She texted at 9:13 a.m. ETA 11. "Might need help with the dresser." The dresser she'd insisted on buying despite its weight, its cost, and my warning that it wouldn't fit through the stairwell. I didn't reply. Instead, I got a call at 10:45. Not from her, from her sister. Claire had always walked the line between mediator and mouthpiece. This time was no different. Her tone was soft, rehearsed, maybe even a little condescending. "She's trying really hard," Claire began, after a brief hello that barely masked the purpose of the call. "I know this is awkward, but can you be a little less cold about it? She's under a lot of pressure right now." I stayed silent just long enough to make it uncomfortable. Then I said, "She staged a public exit. She's getting exactly what she asked for." Claire didn't respond for a moment. Then came the sigh, the tired, performative kind, before she pivoted. "She just needs a place to store a few things for a bit. It's not permanent. She thought maybe the hallway closet?" So now I was a storage unit. I ended the call with a neutral, "I'll see what I can do." But there was nothing to see. I wasn't leaving space open for a return that was never real. At 11:08, her car pulled into the lot. She hadn't come alone. A friend stepped out first, the same one who'd been tagged in most of her recent posts. Tall, stylish, arms crossed like she'd been drafted into moral support duty. They looked coordinated. Matching energy. Matching expressions of practice fatigue. But the second her eyes met the apartment door, I saw something flicker. Uncertainty. Like maybe she'd expected it to look more inviting. Or for me to be standing there, waiting. I wasn't. I watched from my parked car across the lot, windows up, engine off. She knocked once, then checked her phone. Knocked again. She tried the key. It didn't work. I'd had the locks changed the day after her packages stopped coming. She stepped back, confusion surfacing. Her friend asked something. I couldn't hear it, but I saw the shrug that followed. Then she noticed the paper taped to the door. I'd kept it simple. Unit secured. Items left will be discarded. You wanted space. Here it is. She read it twice. Didn't say a word. Her friend peered over her shoulder, then gave her a sharp look, the kind people give when they realize they've only heard one side of a story. They didn't knock again. They just stood there for a while, not speaking. Just two silhouettes on the edge of a plan that hadn't worked. I didn't move, didn't wave, just sat there, watching the moment she realized the stage was gone. And there was no one left in the audience. The next shift didn't come through her directly, it came through whispers. A colleague of mine, Dan, pulled me aside at work that Monday. We weren't close, but close enough that he hesitated before speaking. "Hey, I ran into Elise over the weekend," he said carefully. "She mentioned you'd bailed, that you moved out and left her with everything." He watched my reaction, unsure what side of the truth he'd landed on. I didn't flinch. Just asked, "She say where she's living now?" Dan blinked, caught off guard. "No. Just that she's rebuilding, figuring it out on her own. Said it was tough, but she's trying." That's when it clicked. She wasn't just spinning the story to her followers, she was feeding it to our circle, too. She'd inverted the truth. I hadn't been left. I was the one who had supposedly walked out, left her blindsided, maybe even broke her. Meanwhile, she was trying to get her name back on the lease. I checked the property portal that night. There it was, a request from her email, submitted the same day she'd showed up with the van. A leaseholder reinstatement form, unsigned, pending approval. She wasn't moving on. She was trying to reattach herself to the life she'd already burned in front of an audience. The contrast between her public image and private intent was razor sharp. Publicly, she was the brave one, finding herself, posting vague captions about healing and independence. Privately, she was looking for a backdoor into the comfort she once discarded. A few mutuals began pulling away, unsure what to believe. One even messaged me, Jenna, a friend from her book club, saying, "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I know not everything adds up. It didn't. But I wasn't the one untangling a lie. She was. Elise had always been good at appearances. She knew which filters made her eyes catch the light, which words got applause. But now her new world was cracking under the weight of her fiction. And cracks, no matter how carefully concealed, always leak. I printed out the lease change request, filed it in a folder I'd started. Documentation, post-exit. Not because I wanted revenge. Just clarity. Proof. Because sooner or later, image always collides with reality. And when it did, I wanted her to feel what it was like to watch something fall, not with an audience cheering, but with silence so sharp it cuts. She said she didn't need me, but she wanted the life I built, and I was done loaning it out. A week passed without another word. Then, just after noon on a Thursday, her friend Jenna posted something that stopped me cold. It was a single sentence, white text on a black background. "It's not independence if you just expect a softer landing." No tags, no names, but anyone who'd been paying attention could do the math. The comments were polite at first, vague affirmations, people nodding at what they assumed was some general life lesson. But by the third hour, someone asked directly, "Is this about Elise?" Jenna didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because for the first time, the current shifted. Quietly, subtly, but unmistakably. The applause was dying. I didn't gloat. Didn't screenshot it, didn't forward it to anyone. Just closed the app and leaned back in my chair. For the first time since she walked out, I didn't feel like I was watching a stage. I was watching a collapse. I heard from Claire again 2 days later. She called instead of texting this time, maybe hoping the voice would soften the ask. "She just needs a little time," Claire said. "It's been harder than she thought. Her mom's place is cramped, so she was back home." That was something Elise never would have admitted to me. It didn't fit the narrative. She wasn't supposed to be struggling. She was supposed to be thriving, unshackled, sipping coffee in a minimalist apartment flooded with sunlight and self-actualization. Instead, she was back in the guest room she once called a cage. "She's asking if she can come by and grab a few last things," Claire added. I said nothing. Let the silence stretch. Then asked, "Is that the same guest room she said was emotionally toxic last year?" Claire's voice faltered. "She's not in a great place right now." I didn't press. I didn't offer sympathy. Just ended the call with, "Tell her to send a list. I'll leave the boxes out front." But no list came. Instead, 2 days later, another text arrived from Elise herself. "I know this is awkward. I didn't expect things to go this way. I just wanted to be seen. And I was scared you wouldn't fight for me if I didn't make you." There it was. Not an apology. Not ownership. Just a confession wrapped in justification. Like the exit hadn't been her decision at all, but a calculated plea for attention disguised as bravery. She wanted me to chase her. She wanted to leave with control and come back with forgiveness. But all she'd done was expose herself, not as strong, not as self-sufficient, but as someone who'd rehearsed freedom and then found it inconvenient. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Silence had done what confrontation never could. It made her see the difference between leaving and being left behind. Her last message remained unread. I'd seen the preview on my lock screen, enough to know what it was, the start of a soft pivot. Not quite regret, not quite apology. Just enough ambiguity to invite sympathy. I archived it. Instead, I started boxing her things, not angrily, not with spite, just methodically, item by item, drawer by drawer. A sweater she used to wear when we watched movies, a half-emptied perfume bottle that still smelled like the version of her I used to believe in, books she never read but liked how they looked on the shelf, a stack of greeting cards she kept for sentimental reasons, none of them from me. Each piece felt like evidence, not of betrayal, exactly, but of something more corrosive, performance over presence. She hadn't just left me. She tried to reshape how it looked, and now the applause had stopped. The last box I packed held the mug I got her from our first trip together. It had a chip on the handle. She'd once called it her Monday armor. I wrapped it in old dish towels and sealed the lid. 3 boxes total. That's all it took to end what had once felt like a life. I didn't tell her I'd packed them. I didn't announce it to anyone. I just set them out on the front step on a gray afternoon and sent one message. Your things are outside. 4 p.m. pickup. Door will remain locked. No pleasantries. No argument. Just logistics, the one language she hadn't mastered. I watched from inside as the car pulled up at 417. She stepped out alone this time. No backup. No smiles. Just her hoodie pulled tight, face lowered. She hesitated before walking to the boxes, like maybe she expected me to appear at the window. I didn't. She opened the top one, sifted through it briefly, then closed it again. For a moment she just stood there, hand resting on the lid. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. She'd finally come back, not to stay, not to reclaim, but to witness the ending she hadn't authored. When she drove away, she didn't look back. I watched the taillights disappear down the block, and for the first time since she walked out, the apartment felt whole. Not full, but honest. There was no performance left, only truth and space. The next week was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel ominous. Not anymore. There were no new posts from her. No filtered images of healing hikes or latte art with empowerment quotes. Just silence. Her page went still, like even she wasn't buying the narrative anymore. I didn't check it often, but when I did, I noticed the difference. Fewer likes, fewer comments, some old posts quietly deleted. The ones with the loudest declarations, gone. Replaced by muted captions, or nothing at all. The story was unraveling, and this time, she wasn't trying to restitch it. The silence didn't bother me. I'd made peace with it. Or at least, made room for it. I started cooking again, not because anyone was watching, just because it grounded me. I rearranged the apartment, moved her chair to the garage, replaced the rug we bought together with one I didn't need a second opinion on. It wasn't about erasing her. It was about unfreezing myself. One evening, I ran into Jenna again. Grocery store. She approached me cautiously, like she wasn't sure which version of me she was going to find. I hope it's okay I said something, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. I just got tired of the performance. I nodded. So did I. She offered a small smile. You seem steadier. I am. We didn't talk long. She didn't push, didn't pry. Just one human acknowledging another who'd come through a strange storm. And that was enough. That night, as I was cleaning out a drawer she used to claim as hers, I found a note she'd written months ago, probably during one of those late nights where she journaled but never spoke. It was folded into quarters, crammed between expired coupons and a nail file. Only one sentence stood out. If I leave, will he come after me? It wasn't love. It wasn't grief. It was calculation. I didn't keep the note, just held it for a moment, then dropped it in the trash. She left to test if I'd chase her. She bet everything on a reaction. And now, months later, she finally had her answer. I hadn't chased. I'd rebuilt. In silence. Without applause. Without a staged redemption. And that, I realized, was the difference between us. She needed an audience. I only needed the truth. A month passed. Not a single message. Not from her. Not from Claire. The boxes were gone. The key was changed. The silence, this time, wasn't tactical. It was earned. And I didn't fill it. I let the emptiness settle like dust in corners we used to occupy together. I didn't rush to replace her absence with noise, not music, not dates, not distractions, because healing didn't need an audience either. Every once in a while, I'd catch myself standing in the doorway, the same one she'd once used as a stage. I could still hear the echo of her voice, see the posture, the stance, the flair of her exit. It didn't hurt like it used to, but it hadn't vanished either. It just lived quieter now. Her last attempt at contact had come disguised as logistics, a soft probe, a crack left open in case I still believed in what we built, but she misunderstood the nature of strength. Strength wasn't a door left ajar. It was learning to close it, without locking it in anger, but without waiting for it to swing back open either. I'd given her space, not out of cruelty, not to punish, but because space reveals things noise conceals, and in that space she'd unraveled. Her story didn't end with triumph or reinvention. It ended where all performances do, when the lights go out, and there's no one left clapping. I never answered her last text, never gave her the dramatic confrontation or emotional closure she may have expected. What I gave her was silence. What I gave myself was peace. Now, I kept the apartment in order, bought new sheets, reorganized the kitchen. No big changes, no symbolic purges, just quiet refinements. A life settling into its own shape again, no longer holding space for someone else's ego. Some nights, I'd sit on the couch with a drink, the one spot that still carried her ghost, not as grief, but as memory. I didn't chase the thought away, just let it pass, because it didn't own me anymore. The difference between us was never independence, it was this: she needed a stage to leave, I just needed room to breathe, and now I had it. I never told anyone the full story. Not because I was protecting her, and not because I was afraid, but because there's a dignity in silence that performance can't touch. Let them believe what they wanted, that we drifted apart, that we outgrew each other, that she found herself and I stayed behind. Let her circle guess, reframe, speculate. The truth didn't need to be loud to be real. Her silence wasn't strength, it was delay, hesitation disguised as pride. She had wanted me to rescue her from the fallout of her own choice, not with love, but with permission to undo the exit. And when I didn't, her entire posture collapsed. There's no empowerment in needing someone to validate your departure. No reinvention in secretly hoping they'll undo your freedom for you. I saw it clearly now. She hadn't needed to leave. She needed the image of having left. The pain I carried wasn't from the loss of her. It was from realizing how much of our life had been curated, rehearsed, positioned. We'd lived behind glass for too long, always looking for the right angle. But I wasn't glass. I was brick, foundation, structure. And now, I was still here. Not untouched, but unbroken. The final time I heard from anyone connected to her, it was through a casual mention in a group message, someone asking if I'd seen her latest post. I hadn't. I didn't check anymore. She changed her handle, rebranded again. More poetry quotes, less subtlety. A picture of a suitcase. A caption about healing through hard lessons. And just like that I knew, she hadn't learned a thing. But I had. I'd learned that strength isn't about who walks away. It's about who rebuilds without needing to announce it. It's not leaving that defines you. It's what you do when no one's watching. She once told me she didn't need a man to fix her. She was right. And I never needed a woman to complete me. I just needed the silence that came after the curtain fell. The quiet, steady space where real things grow. No audience. No applause. Just the truth, and finally freedom. There were no more texts, no excuses, no check-ins, not even a disguised, just wondering how you've been. She was gone, not in the dramatic way she wanted to be remembered, but in the way people disappear when they've run out of angles. I had no desire to track her new life. Whatever performance she was staging now, it was for someone else's benefit. Let them clap. I wasn't watching. The apartment felt different, not because it was emptier, but because it was mine again. I hung art I liked. I got rid of the wall mirrors she picked out because it looked good in photos. I put up a shelf that didn't match anything except my mood. For the first time in a long while, the space felt lived in, not staged. I didn't tell my friends much. Those who mattered had already stopped asking. They understood the difference between gossip and truth. And those who didn't? Well, they'd already made their choice. Some mutuals had quietly disappeared. Followers of her version, perhaps. Others stayed silent but supportive, watching from a distance, respectful of the lines I drew. I wasn't rebuilding quickly, but I wasn't standing still. Progress looked like waking up without waiting for her voice. Like making dinner without imagining the echo of her footsteps behind me. Like knowing she once believed silence would make me beg, and finding out it made me whole. What she mistook for coldness was clarity. What she called distance was just dignity. She used her exit as a statement. A way to control the narrative. But when there was no pushback, no plea, no dramatic reversal, her story didn't end, it evaporated. Because you can't narrate silence. You can only feel it. And if you've lied to yourself long enough, that silence is unbearable. But not to me. To me, it was finally air, and I breathed it in.